Welcome to Tapping Into Our New Aura. We are here at the Culture King studio in Las Vegas, Nevada, and I'm your host, Natalie Boxall. So this is my very first episode of my first podcast, and of course, I have a very special guest with me today. She's helped me get my first placement and my big break when I started my very first brand. And we've worked behind the scenes for numerous different brands, and I've gotten to know how special of a person she is. So I would like to welcome Pegauh. I reached out to Pegauh how many years ago?
I think 2017 or 18.
Oh my God, a long time ago.
I think 18.
I had seen her behind the scenes work with a lot of different brands, and she was getting their clothes on everybody, every single celebrity, model, it girl, fashionista. And I'm like, how are these brands doing this? I did a little bit of digging, and lo and behold, I found Luxe. So I reached out to her about my brand Homebody at the time, and I really was interested in how the hell she did what she was doing in the game, and I was super inspired by her story. We ended up talking on the phone for like 4 or 5 hours, and the rest is history. I dragged her to LA to work for a brand with me, and now we're here, partners. We have our agency together. So I just adore you, and you've been a huge part of my journey. So I was like, she would be the perfect first guest. So I really want you to just introduce yourself and kind of give me a little, or let everybody know a little bit of background in your story, like how you ended up where you are now. Just totally a huge inspiration to me personally because of how you've built your business, but also, you know, you help so many people's dreams come true. So just let people know like a little bit of what you do and how you help brands. Like you've scaled to like brands some millions of dollars. So what does that look like on the back end?
I think, okay, a lot of people don't even understand what PR is. I think like not even most of my friends understand what I do. They're like, they can't even word it like in any way. But basically the easiest way to describe PR is essentially like the middleman between the audience or consumers, customers, and the back end of the business. And you're just, whether like in fashion, you're trying to get as many placements, whether it's editorial. So when you see brands in magazines, it's through PR. When you see celebrities wearing certain brands, that's through PR. So that's obviously in the fashion world. And then there's different sectors, right? So like with celebrities, it's like trying to get them on talk shows or whatever it may be. So basically getting your brand out there is your publicist or a PR's job. So yeah.
What, like, how did you even fall into wanting to do that in the fashion space?
It like honestly fell into my lap. So I always wanted to actually do PR and marketing in sports. And then when I started to try to do that on my own, I realized it's really difficult being a female in sports.
Totally.
And then also to compete with these like huge agencies that are so reputable and have so much money behind them. I was like, there's no way. Like I can't compete. So during that time, influencers were really actually like popping off on Instagram. It was like 2016. Mm-hmm. So like right when like brands and like collabs and all of that was happening. So I had 2 friends that were actually quote unquote influencers. And I was just like, let me try to get you guys collabs. Let me try to do something with you guys. And while doing that, I was reaching out to brands. And this one brand, my first client, was like, do PR. And I was like, yeah, but I haven't really done it in fashion, but I just figured it out because they took a chance on me and then I did it. And then, you know, we got them placements in like Cosmo. We got the Kardashians wearing their swimsuits, like a bunch of things. So that was kind of how I fell into it. And then I realized it's just something that I always was passionate about because I've always loved clothes.
And it's also, I think the thing that's also special about you is being able to like trend forecast, right? Like I feel like that's a part of the game that a lot of people don't, you know, that creativity and that like involvement in having an eye for those things is also like a special gift that you can't teach.
Oh yeah.
Right? Like there's a whole back end to it of like knowing, okay, who to email and stuff like that. But like knowing who the next tastemakers are going to be, like
Right.
that's a gift in
Yeah.
itself, right? And I think a lot of people like miss that portion. But to touch back on like, you know, the whole David and Goliath, like battling against these like big agencies, like
Yeah.
you have still been able to make waves in the industry, like having a small team. So
Right.
can
Yeah,
you kind
just
of
me.
talk about what, yeah, exactly. Can you talk about what that looks like and why you think you've been able to be so successful, even given the fact that you may not have as much manpower as these other big agencies do?
I think one thing about me is just obviously my agency is I'm considered like a boutique agency, so I don't take too many brands where I'm like oversaturated. A lot of the big agencies take on so many brands, anywhere from like 30 to 60 brands. So it's like you could get lost in that sauce if you're a
Totally.
brand. Like you're if you're in a showroom with 60 other brands, it's like when you go into Nordstrom. It's like there's gonna be things you miss at the, you know what I mean? Because there's so much in there that you're like gonna overlook it.
Totally.
So that's one thing about me is I always kept like my roster of clients small. And the other thing is, I honestly think it's just like I'm really personable and I
Totally.
just do things that a typical PR wouldn't do, like things that are not in your job description as a PR. I don't mind doing it. And I think on both ends, where it's like my job, I work with stylists, but my clients are the brands itself. But the way that I am with stylists too, it's like I become friends with them. You know
Right.
what
And I
mean?
think that's what gravitated me to you so much, is that after we had our first conversation, I remember getting off the phone and like telling my fiance, like, I love her. Like, I can't wait to work with her. I think she's so dope. And we were just on that same energetic level, right?
Right.
So I think that also too, right? Navigating and like building brands and working with so many different types of people, a big portion of that is reading people's energy, right? Like, and also
Totally.
choosing those type of people that you know that you resonate with.
Right.
I feel like that's been a big part of our journey and like something that we talk about a lot, like are the vibes right or not,
Yeah.
you know?
Because you'll know. Like, there's always, like, I've gotten reached out by people, and I just, like, I'm like, for
You know
example,
you're not
like,
gonna work well
yeah,
together.
I know, like, I avoid like, I don't return their email. And then sometimes I'm like, oh, man, they keep hitting me up. So I'll respond, and sometimes they'll become my clients. But that initial, like, gut feeling where I didn't feel like it was right, it's like when they become my client, I find out at the end, like, I should have stuck.
Listen to it,
like,
right?
Yeah, exactly.
So let's go into a little bit about that too, because when you have a lot of options, right? This is something that me and you always kind of talk about, because when we have like big things that come up, we always kind of run it by each other and be
Right.
like, what do you think? What's the vibe
Yeah.
here, right? But I also want to talk about like manifestation, right?
Yeah.
Because we've been with each other on our journeys long enough to know like you manifested that.
Yeah,
like that's what's
100%.
up,
Yeah.
right? So can you kind of talk to me about what that looks like to you and what part manifestation actually like played in your big story?
Oh yeah, I'm like 100% like huge, like annoying to the point. Like I preach manifesting and law of attraction. I do believe that like obviously our thoughts and like the way we speak and the way we think have so much to do with like our outcome and like our life. So, and like honestly, when I started my business, like that's when I really got into it. And like you could really see the correlation between that and like where you're at in your business. Cause at the beginning, like I always had, there's a lot of self doubt, like, you know, and then I kept getting emails, no, or like not hearing from people. And then it's like, okay. But once I was able to kind of build on like that whole idea of like, I have to get my thoughts like where I need them to be. To be honest, like a lot of the brands I wanted to work with, I have worked with. So like for example, the one of my most well-known brands or like that I have the most success with is Femme LA. And I actually reached out to them like years before they ended up reaching out to me. Like it was like 2 years. And then she actually like saw the DM and then she was going to DM me and then but saw it and was like, whoa, that's weird. She DM'd me like 2 years ago or like a year and a half ago. And, you know, then obviously we ended up working together. So that was that's one of like many examples of brands and like things in my life that I like manifested.
And I feel like with what you do too, because I do remember when we first had our conversation, you were like, okay, now that we've talked about this, go make a list. Who are your top 10 people that you want to get placements on, right? And I remember at the time the Kardashians were really huge, and that was like the King Kylie era, right? And I'm like, Kylie Jenner, let's like get ourselves on Kylie Jenner, you know, and not really thinking. And literally, I remember you calling me. Are you sitting down? Yeah. Okay, check Instagram. And I'm like, what the fuck? And just after having that interaction and just also knowing that like that direction makes so much sense, right? Like set the direction, set the intention to have the direction, and then everything will fall into place from there. And I think that's super important, and that's somewhere where we've resonated together so much that we've done it enough to know that it's capable of like happening over and over and over again, right? So to kind of touch back on like brands and also placements and stuff, like what could you say were some of like the really cool moments that you had in your business?
Honestly, I've had a lot of cool things, and it's weird because sometimes I don't like, I forget, or like, you know what I mean? You just are like
looking for more, bigger and better every time.
But like one of the biggest obviously is like any Beyonce placement has been huge, and like she wore like the Feminine shoes in her Adidas Ivy Park campaign. That was the first Beyonce placement, and then this like not the second one, but one of the biggest ones for me is when she wore the shoes at the Grammys, and like when she wore the shoes at the Grammys, not just at the Grammys, but it was when she broke the record for most
I remember
Grammys
that fire.
And accepting the speech in the shoes. So like that was like crazy, because I'm like, that's just like a moment
iconic
in history.
Yes,
and it's Beyonce, so it's like you hit two of those like whatever. But another one is like, I guess like there's been times where like, for example, like Kim Kardashian has like posted on her story and like tagged the brands, and like obviously we're not paying for the tag, so those were kind of cool too, because obviously the brands were really happy with that,
right? Because what are we looking at when we're talking about rates of those type of celebrities?
Or like 6 figures for a story
totally
post.
So when you're getting that for free
so that's why like PR is, you know, a beneficial thing to have,
right? But also it comes from relationships, right? Because viewing your journey as an outsider, you put in work, right? So that's the one thing too, right? With the being in the fashion industry, it looks glamorous from the outside, but it's a lot of work.
Oh yeah, people don't understand. People just don't even understand. Like they think celebrities just like come out and they like look like fucking like top tier, but it's like there's so much work that goes behind that look. Like the stylist, for example, will pull like 5 racks of clothes for like one outfit.
Right.
You know, so it's like even the stylist, like people don't understand. They think the stylist just goes shopping. It's like, no.
Yeah. And that's why once you started breaking down to me how the placements and stuff actually work, and you're like, yeah, she chose your piece off of a rack of all these clothes. And I'm like, okay, that's dope. Yeah. And it became really major for me.
And it's a big deal because they'll be in a room full of racks of clothes. So for your item to be worn is like not like a 1 in a million, but it's a really like small chance,
right? Totally.
You know?
I want to also touch back on when we were talking about manifestation. What does your intention setting look like? Because I have people that do, you know, mood boards or inspo boards and all different types of stuff. But what does it look like for you when you're setting goals for yourself?
I mean, to be honest, when I first started getting into the whole like manifesting and law of attraction, I did have like a vision board that I like had in my room, and it wasn't like that cool. It was like I literally did it on the computer and just put everything and printed out a piece of paper. But now it's me. I just always write. Like I've always been into writing, but like for example, I do use the journal, like our New Aura journal, like pretty much every morning.
Thank you. Good for you. I'm proud of you.
Yeah, but like I always and like I'm like really like a freak into astrology and all that stuff. So like every new moon, I'll write down like my intentions. Every full moon, like you know, so it's like I go with the moon calendar, I guess.
Totally.
But I also just make it a point to write things down like every day.
I think it helps like keep yourself accountable too. Right. And then also for me, you know, journaling has always been really important because when I wake up, like, and especially there's so many moving parts to my life, sitting down and like prioritizing what that looks like, to be working on it every day, to be keeping accountable. Like, what did I write down yesterday that I wanted to do for myself? It's like a little form of self-care, right?
100%.
And in speaking of self-care, though, I know you always be getting it at the gym. So I wanted, like, let's talk about that. I want to kind of discuss like what that journey kind of has looked like for you and how that's affected like your mental health and how that kind of boils over into the rest of your life, kind of keeping yourself accountable to show your body some self-care.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people wouldn't know this if they just met me like today, but like I used to weigh like 90 pounds. Like, so like I always had like a desire to look more like, I don't want to say, I just like wanted to like gain weight, I guess. And like I would eat whatever I wanted and I never could gain weight. And then what happened was I was dealing with a really toxic relationship, which got me into like, I want to like look better and feel better. And that's when I started working out. And then it just became like a almost like therapy, where it's like I started being able to do things that I never thought I could do. Like I remember the first time I just squatted the bar, like the barbell. I was like, oh my God.
Like I'm only like 8 months from being very intimidated from the weights. I just started lifting weights and now I'm like, I could lift anything.
Yeah, no, but it's a very intimidating. Just going into the gym is intimidating.
Totally.
And then when you're obviously like, I was like so skinny and scrawny, like where I was like, oh my God, like I could have even like lift 10 pounds, you know? And so like once I started realizing like how strong I was and like getting stronger by each gym session or whatever, like I was like, wow. And it honestly helps you mentally just to know you could like do something you thought you couldn't do.
Totally.
Because then you could transfer that in like other areas of your life and be like, oh, well, I never thought I could lift that before. And now look, I lifted that.
Right.
So why can't you do whatever else you think you can't do?
I totally agree. And I think also with working out and just having that accountability of knowing, like for me, it's like at least I know I'm taking care of my body.
Right.
At the very least, but also at the very most, right? I feel like taking care of your body is actually the most important thing. But when we're like in the hustle and bustle of like getting to the bag and stuff, we usually never like take the time to be like, okay, but am I actually taking care of my vessel too?
Right.
I think just recently in the past couple years, my focus has shifted to my vessel because this is what has been carrying me through this whole time and also going to get me to my next level, right? Yeah, because I'd be like, okay, you know, when we used to work together in LA and I remember having that long drive, I wouldn't even feed myself. I'd like go straight to work, drink a fucking coffee, and then I'm like, at the end of the day, I'm like, why do I feel like shit? And I'm shaking and like twack, you know, like it was just horrible. But it was like the very simple things of just taking care of my vessel, and then that will help me propel all the other professional things that I want to do in life, right? But I definitely can't have a conversation with you without talking about, you know, mystics, right? So our readings, how we always share about how we've had, you know, astrological charts read and all stuff. So can you talk to me a little bit about how that's actually guided you in your journey too of deciphering what's for you and what's not, and how you use those tools in your business life?
Like, are you talking about my psychic readings?
Yes.
Okay. So I think, I don't know if it's just a natural Scorpio thing to be really into astrology, but I've always been into astrology. And so once I got older, like obviously I started being fascinated with like psychics and readings and tarot cards and all that. So I'd get readings all the time. Not all the time, but like more than the average person. And then I found a few that like I gravitated towards, and honestly, it's not like how people think like someone's there with like a crystal ball, like or something, but like the psychics that I did end up like forming good relationships with, they kind of like teach you like everything's free will. So even if like you're getting a reading, it's not like this is gonna happen to you, but it's like this could happen to you.
These are potential things.
Yeah.
Yes.
So like, and then it kind of, in a sense, you have someone you could talk through that with and like, you know, help navigate, I guess, your certain ideas that you might have with going in that direction or going the opposite direction. So to me, those became more of a tool like therapy.
Yes.
So like I used it as that, and then I just used, and honestly, all psychics, always told me that I have like a innate like psychic ability that I need to tap into myself. And I just think we all do,
I totally
especially as
agree.
women.
Yes.
Like, so I think like it's just for us to trust our gut and our intuition, because we
Yes.
always know. We
Right.
always, as I can't speak on men, but I think most women I know always know like when something's off.
Yes.
Like, you know, we feel it.
Yes.
So like I think that that's something like we can't ignore. So if we have that feeling about anything, whether it's our career, relation, whatever it is, like there's a reason it's there.
Yes. And I think I have this conversation a lot with other people too, right? Because whether, you know, you believe in God or spirit, the universe, you know, no matter what it is, I do feel like we have a direct connection to that.
Right.
And most of the time, that direct connection is our internal guidance system. And that internal guidance system sometimes gets lost with reality, right?
Right.
Whatever toxic relationships or anxiety, depression, expectations from others, those things hinder us from utilizing our internal guidance system. And then also down to like health, you know, like they say like your gut and your brain are like connected. And so if you're not taking care of like what you're eating, it's hard for you to like think properly.
Right.
So
100%.
I always totally believe in that too. And I had, you know, psychic readings and just tapping into all the other mystics that before maybe I may have not entertained because it was a little bit like too woo-woo for me.
Yeah.
But as time has progressed and I have been able to utilize those tools, there's been things where you just can't deny the power of them. So, you know, like, is there anything that you can think of was like an aha where you're like, yo, this shit is legit?
Honestly,
any readings or anything that have came to fruition?
Honestly, like a few readings. Like I had a reading with one of the psychics that I usually go to, and she just knew, like she like for example with your like billboard that you had. Like I had a reading. I was telling her about NP, which obviously is, you know, our business together, and she said that like she's like, oh, I see some billboards in your future. And I'm like, what is she talking about? Like in my head, I was thinking like
maybe for the brand.
Yeah, I was not like, and then literally like 2 months later, you're like, I'm going to have a billboard. And I'm like, what? Like, that's crazy. So it's like, just little like stuff like that. And then other things where she's told me about things about like my personal life where like later on, like I found like it was true.
Right.
Like, so just like stuff like that. But I think what I like, my biggest takeaway that like I think is important when you get in, like people are so turned off by psychics or like astrology or the mystic things is like, you don't like, I'm not one of those people that like this, like, oh, a Scorpio can't date a Taurus. I'm never going to date a Taurus. Totally. Or like they told me like this is going to happen in my psychic reading. That means it's going to happen. Like, it's like you just take it for what it is.
Right.
And you know, like, you have the power to change your future and like change your reality.
If it don't apply, let it fly.
Yeah,
that's my
like
favorite
if you don't
thing.
want that to happen, you can
when
change
people
it.
see readings or like astrology things and they're like, it said that da 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 da, and that there's gonna be some like strife in my relationship, but me and my boyfriend are doing just great. Like if it don't apply, let it fly, girly. Like it's all good.
Fact.
Yeah, and that's one of my favorite things. But also same thing, you know, like my fiance Anton, he doesn't. Not that he doesn't believe in it, but he's like a Sag, and he like I'll tell him about himself. I'll tell him about himself, but when he's like, okay, I'll be like, that's so Sag of you though to not be like believing, you know. But as time progressed, and as I've shared with him these readings, and he's seen things come to fruition,
right?
Whether it be, you know, from that or even just from my own personal manifestations that I've shared with him, it's like same thing. There's no denying the power of like thought, and intention, right?
Right.
But there's also so much work that also goes behind it. I feel like people are like, well, I already wrote down on my vision board that I'm going to be a millionaire. It's like, okay, but are you putting in that work?
Yeah.
Are you putting in that work to be that millionaire work? Are you having that mindset of a millionaire?
Yeah.
You know, it's
not as easy as like writing it down.
Moving parts for sure.
Yeah. Like obviously you have to put in the work, but also too, and I think we've talked about this a few times before, is like there are moments where you have those like limiting beliefs or like you doubt yourself or you have the imposter syndrome and all of these things where, you know, you don't realize how much of effect that does have on manifesting certain things.
Blocks for
yeah,
sure.
Exactly.
Yeah. Even us just sitting here right now is a manifestation coming to fruition because we were like, we need to have a podcast because we could talk about our journey and
Yeah.
this and this and this and this. And, you know, and it's also like we're breaking our own personal barriers because
Yeah.
I know you don't like being in
I
front
hate
of
the
the camera.
I hate the camera.
If you look at any time I've tried to take photos with
yeah, I'm
you,
like,
you're off to
camera?
the side or off to the side or whatever.
Yeah.
And I just, that's
and
why
I hate my voice too, so I hate having to hear back that too. So it's like a lot of things.
just scroll
I'm
past our
just like,
posts.
I'm literally like, you know, like going and doing things that I
But
normally
the
wouldn't do.
the key takeaway from that, right, is like doing things that are outside of your comfort zone,
'Cause
right?
that's the only way you could grow. And,
Totally.
like elevate.
Right. And that's why I say sometimes we set boundaries too high for ourselves where we're like, okay, that's just not who I am. This is not what I do. This, even just having this podcast, I'm like, there's no way, you know, I could get my value out in another way, but this
Right.
kept coming through.
Right.
So when the opportunity for me to be in this studio, like with Culture Kings in Las Vegas, I was like, this is, you
it
know,
was kind of like a manifestation
was
coming to life. Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah.
I'm so excited that we were able to get through this.
Yeah.
And I'm super proud of you. And I'm super thankful. Before we wrap, though, I have a couple of questions that I want to ask you. I want to start by asking you if you can share with us any notable pieces of advice that you've ever received that helped you a lot on your journey.
I don't know if it's like necessarily like specific advice I got from someone, but it's just advice that I've learned from like watching so many interviews with successful people and their journey is like, honestly, how like the thoughts you have and the words you speak on a daily basis is so important. Like if I could get across anything, it just like be super mindful with your thoughts and your words because you manifest things into your life without even knowing by thinking certain things and saying certain things.
Absolutely.
So I think that that's like the biggest and best advice is just, you know, take inventory of your thoughts, take inventory of your words and just learn to like when you have a bad thought or when you're about to say like when people say like I'm so fat or I'm so dumb or like whatever they say like that, you don't realize like
You're putting that upon yourself.
Yeah,
And
like,
you're really
you're
casting
not-
a spell upon
yeah,
yourself.
exactly. Because
Yes.
like spelling, like if you break it down, like spelling, like spells, like
Yes,
you know,
totally.
like so it's like all of these things. So it's like we have the power with our words and with our thoughts to manifest and to create a reality.
Yeah,
So,
I think I didn't even really realize how much we do like speak, you know, down on ourselves throughout
Right.
the day. I had come across a challenge before and it was like try and go the whole day without saying not a single
Negative.
thing negative about yourself.
yeah,
And I'm like, okay, easy, whatever, easy. And then I started running into like, you know, how much I was belittling myself
Right.
on a daily basis without even realizing it, you know?
don't.
Which is really easy to do. You know, we live in a world of comparison. The moment we wake up and we go on Instagram, it's like that is already moving. And it's so true. I even have gone to the point where I used to always be like, I'm dead. You
Oh
know?
my God, I stopped saying that too. I literally don't say it like when I want to say.
And now I'm like, no, I am here. I'm alive
Yeah.
and well. And, you know, and it's the same thing I'm trying to instill in my girls. It's like, you know, don't speak into like existence things that don't need to be like, especially if they are something negative about
Yeah,
yourself.
you don't realize how like powerful your words are.
And I think that also correlates with even like the people that you follow on Instagram, right? And my whole thing has been like, I'm not going to follow anyone that I don't get value from, that I
Right.
don't feel like they're sharing a message that I can resonate with, because that's kind of like the tipping of the domino, you know?
Right.
Anyone that makes me not feel good about myself, I don't want to take in that type of content or
Right.
that type of energy, really, right?
Yeah.
So when, you know, speaking about that, what are some like books and podcasts that you feel like have been super vital on your journey too, and that you've learned a lot from?
I'm like a big Abraham Hicks person. Like I watch like YouTube videos of Abraham Hicks, which is, if no one knows, that's like Jerry and Esther Hicks, like whatever. But my favorite book by them is Ask and It Is Given, and it was just a book that I read that changed my whole perspective on everything, and really I got to understand the law of attraction through that book. Because a lot of times people don't realize like the law of attraction and how it really works. But that book actually like breaks it all down for you. So you could actually, they give examples, they do all of that. So you could really take that in and understand and be able to apply it to your life.
Totally. What about podcasts? I know you're a big podcast person
I think
like me.
my favorite podcast right now is Jay Shetty's. I love that he just brings on guests, and it's not only that you like learn about that guest's journey, but like you learn about different things that affected their like mental health or like how they navigated through certain things in their journey. And like he had like Joe Dispenza on there, which is like one of my other favorite like
Same,
you know, people. And then another person I think is like honestly, I think it was probably the first podcast I got into was Gary Vaynerchuk's. And he was just so real and authentic. And I still think to this day, he's like a huge mentor for me that he doesn't obviously even know me, but like I read his books. Like I really learned about entrepreneurship and how to be successful through like his videos and
he's
content.
The first influencer event that I ever went to was like something that he put together. And I just like I met him in person. I was like, this is dope. And then I really, after like integrating a lot of his teachings into the stuff that I do, you know, I'm like, yeah, that's kind of how I fell in love with podcasts too.
Yeah.
So, and I think that that's super important. You know, most of the time, like for me, I used to be the music in the gym type person, but now I feel like so much more like solitude when I'm listening to something, and I have like, I feel like I'm getting programmed, but that programming is positive, you know?
I know. And I was just telling somebody like, I don't really watch TV because it's all for you, it's all meant for you to be programmed.
Totally.
So all I do at home is
that's why they call it paid programming, right?
Like, exactly. So all I do is honestly, I'll watch podcasts and I'll watch like I said, those Abraham Hicks like little clips from her like seminars and stuff like that. Because if I'm gonna program myself, I'd rather program myself with valuable information that's gonna make me a better person and really like help the way I think and into a positive direction.
Totally.
Where it's like I'm learning how to create my reality and like keeping on track with like things that aren't gonna like deter from that. Right. And I think that like when we go on Instagram, when you watch the news, when you watch certain TV programs and all this, all it does is it really just, if you pay attention to how you feel when you're on it or like watching it, you'll realize like you're not vibrating at a positive frequency.
Right. Totally taking down like to a lower vibration. I totally feel that. And I think that that's why, you know, for me personally, that intention of what am I using social media for?
Right.
Like, am I using this to be a learning tool, to actually connect with my community, to actually share with my friends and family so they can keep up with what I'm doing because I love to keep up with what they're doing?
Right.
Or am I using this as a tool of comparison? You know, people use it to lurk on exes or like,
just
you know,
lurk on people they don't care about.
Or, you know,
like,
be in, you know, the other blogs and stuff where it's nothing but low vibrational toxicity. And then the people are arguing in the comments and it's like, those are all like super low vibrational energies, you know?
And you're not going to manifest anything on like vibrating at low frequency.
Right. And so those are the things it's like most people don't even realize.
No, they don't.
That's actually the exchange that they're getting. And then they're going out into the world, you know, seeing people as a threat or, you know, things like that all come down to the type of content that you're
consuming.
Totally. And I think that was a big portion of why I wanted to do something like this, is that I wanted to bring something of value, be able to share other people's stories, but also just have like real life conversations that don't really have, you know, any like intertwined this or intertwined that, you know?
Yeah.
So, but I think that this is fucking awesome. We were able to do this. I have to say all the like and subscribe, comment, share, send to your friends and family and let them know that manifestation is real.
It really is. I like cannot be more of an advocate for manifesting.
But thank you so much for coming. I appreciate you mobbing to Vegas just for me. Love you.
Love you.